In this tutorial, I want to go over the if statement and how it's used, how operators are used, list of operators, nested if statements, and then in the next video we'll get into something called a switch statement, which is essentially a nested if statement. I'm going to load up my editor. Here's our program from last time, and I'm going to just start writing an if statement. So we're getting this variable here called myFirstVar, and let's go ahead and write the if statement like right here. And I think I wrote an if statement before, so you may have seen it. You may have seen this before. You simply type if, right? If this condition in this parentheses is true, do the code that is here. So if this is true, do this stuff. If it's not true, we can write an else statement. If this isn't true, do this stuff. And there's also something called an if else, or else if. And simply what that means is that it's going to test another condition. It's going to check this one first, see if whatever condition you put in there is true. If it's not true, it goes to the next one, checks that one, and so on. And so you keep using else ifs until you find the appropriate matching logic that you have for your project. And then at the end you can put your else. So if it doesn't match any of these, you can write code here that just says do stuff if it doesn't match any of it. And so we're going to write an expression here where we take in myFirstVar, and if myFirstVar is equivalent to 1, so this is the equivalency operator, which means that it's looking at the direct value and what it's pointing to, and is going to check the value of myFirstVar and see if we had entered 1. If we didn't enter 1 and we entered 2, then this else if statement is going to be executed, and so on. myFirstVar, and then we can see out something here and say you didn't enter 1, 2, or 3. So we're going to just do some stuff here. See out you entered 1. I'm going to copy that. Oops. Two, 3. So I'm going to save that. I'm going to open up my command prompt. My name. Go to my desktop. Now we're going into C++. Then G++ miles.cpp-o miles.exe. Okay, it compiled. Now we're going to execute the program. And let me increase font. Oops. Okay, there we go. So we're going to enter a number. Let's go ahead and enter 1. You entered 1 because it hit that first if statement. And once it hits that first if statement, it then ignores the rest of this. So if we do the same thing and we enter 2, it now says Oh, it now says that we didn't enter 1, 2, or 3. So we have some type of logic error going on there, which is interesting. What did we enter? We entered 2. Perhaps I put a space there. Let me do it again. Yep, I must have put a space there. So now it says you entered 2. And we'll just stay consistent. We'll just do it again and put 3. And now you can see we've entered 3. However, if we did this by accident and we just put some gibberish in there, characters actually equate to integers too. And you can see that we didn't enter 1, 2, or 3 because, DFFS, integer value, doesn't match up to either of those. So we also need to understand, now that we have the basic concept of an if statement and how it's kind of catching logic, and then this is the basic form of an if-else block. And these are very useful, and if you can understand these, you understand a majority of all logic in programs. If something happens, do this. And that's a lot of the programming mythology you'll go over. So the next best thing that you need to understand here is the equivalency operator and all the other operators that you can use with the if statement. And so let's go open our web browser, and we'll just look for operators to use in if statement C++. Operators, C++ tutorial, C++.com. Okay, so there's an assignment operator that you can use in an if statement, and it doesn't have to be used in an if statement. It can be used elsewhere for assignment variables, of course. So the operator, addition, subtraction, division, modulus operators, incrementing, decrementing operators, logical operators. The logical operators are the major ones that you're going to be using inside if statements. So you have and you have or. And so what this says, if the left hand side of the expression is false, the combined result is false. If the left hand side of the expression is true, the combined result is true. The right hand side would never be evaluated. So looking at this, you have an and an or. So if my first var is 1, and or, let's do or, my first var is equal to 2, and I'll save this. And so if I enter 1 or 2, it's going to hit this first if statement first because it operates sequentially, right? It does this one, does this one, does this one, does this one. So this is actually unreachable code here. It will never go into this. So we're going to compile this, and then we're going to execute it, and we're going to enter 2. You entered 1 or 2. Let's go ahead and enter, instead of or, let's do and. And now this is syntactically correct, but logically there's an error here because my first var cannot be both 1 and 2. It has to be one or the other. So actually now this is unreachable code. So if I type 2 here, it'll actually go here, and it says you entered 2. So let me save the file, and then I'm going to compile it and then run it, and we're going to enter 2, and it says you entered 2 because it can't be both at the same time. And it's important to note that in this article here, whatever you want to say, web page, whatever, it evaluates the left hand side of the expression first. So it's going to look at this. If this is false, the whole expression is false, because with and, both sides of the operator have to be true in order for it the whole expression to evaluate to true. Now with or statement, it'll evaluate the left hand side first. If it's true, then it stops, because when you use or, the two pipes characters here. When you use or, only one of these need to be true, not both of them. If both of them are true, it still evaluates to true. However, if this expression on the left-hand side evaluates to true, this expression on the right-hand side never gets evaluated. And that can be useful sometimes if you're looking explicitly for comparison order. Like if you wanted to check to see if this was equal to void or null or whatever it is in C++. But you had to do that, so this could be empty, and then you'd say if this is null, then check this thing, right? Or if this isn't null, then check this thing and check it, see if this works. If that makes sense. And there's a way to do it such that it doesn't evaluate in that order, and then here it is right here. So this operator right here, bitwise inclusive or exclusive or unitary complement, and this involves shifting bits, and that might be another video, because it's that goes into binary and kind of tells you how to like basically divide and multiply things by 2. But yeah, we'll make that into another video. So one last thing I wanted to get into was nested if statements. So we have our if statement right here. If it's going to be 1 or 2, then it's going to go into here. Now, if the program reaches this level of execution inside of here, I want to then evaluate even further. And make a nested if statement. So this if statement could have its own else ifs, its own else statement, and so on. And so now you have an if statement inside of another if statement. So let's go ahead and enter 1 and see what it outputs. I'm going to save this, and then I'm going to go over here and I'm going to compile it, and then okay, I'm missing something. I never put a semicolon over here. Okay. Now I'm going to save it. I'm over here. I'm going to compile it, and then I'm going to run it, and then I'm going to enter 1. And now we're inside the nested if statement. And you can do majority of things, but the biggest ones that you'll ever biggest operators you'll ever use are the equivalency operator, the or, and the and operator, like that. Let me know if you have any questions. Thank you for watching.